Did you know that you're making mistakes in your relationships without even realizing it? Yes, mistakes that may be silently sabotaging your connections in a subtle, almost imperceptible way. And the worst part, you're probably repeating these mistakes every day. Today, I'm going to show you 10 common mistakes that are destroying your relationships without you noticing. And the best part, I'll teach you how to fix them immediately. If you're ready to transform your relationships and avoid the same missteps that so many people make, stay with me until the end. Because number 5 will surprise you. Independence is something we often admire in people. Being able to take care of yourself, make decisions, and not depend on anyone is a strong quality. But when it comes to relationships, it can become an obstacle. Let me explain why. Think about it. When someone gets close to you, they want to feel that they can be helpful or important in some way. If you always give the impression that you don't need anyone, it can create a barrier, even if you don't realize it. It's not about pretending to be dependent, but about finding a balance. For example, imagine you're in a relationship and always handle everything on your own. Work problems, emotional issues, important decisions. The other person might start feeling like they don't have room to contribute, or that their opinions aren't valued. Showing vulnerability isn't a sign of weakness, but of trust. When you allow someone to help you, even in small things, you're saying, "I trust you enough to share this part of my life." A good way to work on this is by starting with small openings. Something like asking someone's opinion on a project, sharing a problem you're facing, or even accepting help with something simple, like organizing a task. This creates space for connection and strengthens the bond. After all, relationships are a two-way street. Giving and receiving are equally important. And of course, being independent doesn't mean you have to give up your essence. It's just about learning to include others in your world. That makes all the difference, don't you think? Being a highly observant person is like having a radar constantly on. You notice things that most people let slide, from a subtle change in tone of voice to an almost imperceptible gesture. This can be a great advantage in relationships, but depending on how you use this skill, it could create discomfort. Think with me. When you observe something and comment in a very direct or analytical way, the other person might feel like they're being analyzed or judged, even if that's not your intention. It's like you're looking through a magnifying glass, and that can make someone feel exposed. A way to use your observations positively is to direct them toward support and empathy. For example, let's say you notice someone is quiet or acting differently than usual. Instead of pointing out directly what you've noticed with something like, "You seem strange today," you can approach it more warmly by saying, "Are you okay? I'm here if you want to talk." This shows you care without pushing. Another important point. Sometimes what you observe doesn't need to be said. Not every detail we notice needs to be pointed out. Assess whether what you've noticed is truly relevant to the moment and to the relationship. Sometimes keeping it to yourself and adjusting your own approach is the best choice. Finally, remember to use this ability to appreciate people. Acknowledge positive things you've noticed about them. "I loved how you handled that situation today," or "I noticed the effort you put into this. It looks amazing." Small gestures like these show that your attention goes beyond the surface and creates a space of trust and connection. Being a person who speaks without fear is a powerful quality. You can express your opinions, say what you think, and face tough situations with honesty. And that's incredibly valuable. But when it comes to relationships, it's important to adjust how this honesty appears. Let me explain. Imagine you have something important to say, maybe constructive criticism or a strong opinion. If you're too direct without considering how the other person might feel, there's a risk of coming across as rude or even insensitive, even if your intention is positive. It's that difference between being heard and being understood. One interesting approach is to always think about the emotional impact of your words before speaking. For example, instead of saying, "You did this wrong," you could reframe it like, "I think there's a different way to approach this. Want to try it together?" This keeps your honesty but conveys support and opens space for dialogue. Another important point, body language and tone of voice. What you say matters, but how you say it makes all the difference. A calm tone and a receptive posture help soften messages that might be harder to hear. Also, remember to balance your criticisms with sincere compliments. For example, if you need to point out something that's not working in a relationship or project, start by recognizing something positive. "I loved how you handled that situation, but I think we can tweak this part to make it even better." This shows your intention is constructive, not just critical. In the end, being someone who speaks without fear is a great strength, But in relationships, this superpower works even better when combined with empathy and care. That way, you don't just express yourself, but you also strengthen the connections around you. Being a highly intelligent person is something that impresses and often attracts admiration from others. Your ability to solve problems, understand complex concepts, and offer creative solutions is a true differentiator. But when it comes to relationships, this can unintentionally create an imbalance. Have you noticed that sometimes intelligent people can give the impression that they know everything? It's not intentional, but by responding quickly or correcting others, you can make someone feel inferior or even discourage them from participating in the conversation. And in a relationship, whether romantic, friendly, or professional, it's important to create an environment where everyone feels heard and valued. One way to balance this is to practice active listening. Even if you already have the answer on the tip of your tongue, let the other person finish speaking and ask for their perspective. Not only does this reinforce the connection, but it also shows that you value their opinion, even when you have a lot to contribute. Another tip is to share your intelligence in a collaborative, not competitive way. For example, instead of directly correcting someone with, "Actually, that's wrong," you could suggest something like, "Interesting. I've heard of another way to see this. What do you think?" This approach invites dialogue and avoids any feeling of confrontation. Finally, remember that emotional intelligence is just as important as intellectual intelligence. Being smart in a relationship isn't just about knowing more, but knowing how to use that knowledge to strengthen bonds, encourage the other person, and resolve conflicts harmoniously. When you combine these skills, your intelligence becomes not just an advantage, but a tool for building deeper, more lasting connections. Having a preference for deep connections is an amazing quality. It shows that you value authenticity and want something more meaningful than superficial interactions. But in relationships, it can be challenging to balance this desire with the pace and needs of others. Think about this. Not everyone is ready to open up deeply right away. Sometimes, when you try to deepen a conversation or explore more personal topics too quickly, you might come across as intense or even invasive, even if your intention is simply to connect. A good strategy is to start light. Show genuine interest in simple things. Ask about hobbies, daily experiences, or something the person is excited to share. It's like building a bridge. You need a solid foundation before moving on to more complex or personal subjects. Another key point is respecting the other person's pace. Sometimes your desire to go deeper might not be matched in the same moment. And that's okay. Instead of getting frustrated, focus on creating a safe space where the person feels they can open up at their own time. Small gestures, like remembering details of what they shared or showing empathy in minor situations, help build trust. Also, remember that not all connections need to be deep to be valuable. Light and relaxed moments have their place too, and can strengthen the foundation of the relationship. Finding a balance between depth and lightness is key to creating genuine bonds that last. When you demonstrate patience and flexibility, your pursuit of deep connections stops being something overwhelming and becomes a strength that attracts people. After all, everyone wants to feel understood and valued, but in their own time. Being an emotionally intense person can transform relationships. Your ability to feel deeply, show passion, and genuinely care about others creates connections that feel almost magical. But like anything in life, balance is needed because intensity can be overwhelming for some people. Imagine your emotions as a campfire. When controlled, it warms, illuminates, and creates comfort. But if uncontrolled, it might feel like everything around you is on fire. That's why understanding the energy you bring to your interactions is essential. For example, if you're excited about something, it might be tempting to share every detail at once, hoping the other person will reciprocate with the same enthusiasm. But what if they're having a calmer day or dealing with something else? Excessive intensity can be draining or make the person feel like they need to match your energy. One important tip is to observe the other person's reactions. Small signs like a brief response or a change of subject could indicate it's time to adjust the tone. This doesn't mean hiding your emotion, but learning to pace it so it fits better with the context of the interaction. It's also important to create moments for emotional recharge. Intense people often absorb others' emotions, which can be exhausting. Taking time for yourself, whether it's through a hobby, meditation, or simple reflection, helps keep your energy balanced and healthy. Finally, remember that your emotional intensity is a gift. When used sensitively, it can be the force that brings people together, inspires trust, and creates a space where emotions are welcomed and valued. Knowing how and when to apply this intensity turns your passion into a positive differentiator in relationships. Having high standards in relationships shows that you know what you deserve and won't settle for less. That's great. After all, setting clear boundaries and expecting excellence can lead to healthy and inspiring connections. But like everything, it's important to be careful. High standards can unintentionally become a source of pressure for those around you. Think about it. If someone feels like they can never meet your expectations, they may start to get frustrated or even pull away. This doesn't happen because your standards are unfair, but because sometimes they aren't communicated clearly or are presented without room for human error. An interesting approach is to separate what's essential from what's flexible. For example, in a relationship, you might deeply value honesty and respect. Those are non-negotiables. But other aspects, like personal preferences or communication styles, can be adjusted over time. Knowing where to bend and where to maintain your boundaries is key to avoiding unnecessary conflicts. Another tip is to value effort, not just the result. Imagine someone tries to meet your expectations, but doesn't quite reach the level you expected. Instead of focusing on what was missing, acknowledge what was done. I can see you really put in the effort, and that means a lot to me. This encourages the person to keep trying without feeling like they're competing against an unreachable standard. And why not apply the same kindness to yourself? High standards often come with self-criticism. Remember, you also deserve patience and understanding in your own journey. When your standards are communicated openly and balanced, they become a guide for strengthening relationships, not a barrier. After all, the goal is to grow together, right? High self-confidence is an attractive trait. When you believe in yourself and have self-assurance, it shows in your actions and interactions. This can be incredible for relationships because trust is an essential ingredient for any healthy connection. However, when confidence is excessive and doesn't come with humility, it can be seen as arrogance, and that's where things can get tricky. Think about it. When you exhibit confidence but fail to acknowledge your own flaws or limitations, the other person might feel like you see yourself as superior or that there's no room for mistakes. This can create distance because, on some level, we all want to be accepted and understood, flaws and all. No one likes to feel like they're constantly being compared or judged. A good way to keep confidence without veering into arrogance is to be authentic and vulnerable when necessary. For example, instead of acting like you always know the right answer, you could acknowledge when you don't have all the answers and show openness to learning. A simple phrase like, "I'm confident in what I'm saying, but I'm always open to new ideas," shows that you are sure of yourself but also humble. Additionally, celebrating the achievements of others is a great way to balance your confidence. When you recognize someone else's success without feeling the need to put yourself above them, it strengthens the connection because the other person sees that you value their success just as much as your own. Don't forget, true confidence also involves knowing you don't need to be perfect all the time. By being humble and open to others' imperfections, you not only maintain healthy confidence, but also create an environment where relationships can flourish with more authenticity. When you are secure in yourself while also recognizing and valuing the qualities of others, your confidence becomes a magnetic quality in relationships. It inspires genuine respect and admiration. Having a tendency to control things can reflect your desire for things to go the right way. You have a clear vision of how things should be done and like to ensure everything goes as planned. This can be extremely helpful, especially when making important decisions or maintaining an organized and efficient environment. However, in relationships, excessive control can be a challenge. When you try to control others' actions or feelings too much, it can start to seem authoritative or dismissive of the other person's autonomy. Even if your intention is good, that is, to make sure everything goes right, excessive control can make others feel suffocated or like they don't have the freedom to act on their own. A good way to balance this tendency is to give more space for others to make decisions and express their opinions. Instead of imposing your ideas, try involving them in the choices. For example, if you're planning a trip or an event, instead of deciding all the details by yourself, ask what the other person thinks. What do you think about this? Would you like to do something different? This not only reduces the sense of control, but also strengthens collaboration and partnership in the relationship. Also, learn to trust others more. Not every detail needs to be under control. And in many cases, letting things happen more spontaneously can bring more happiness and harmony. When you loosen the reins, people around you feel freer to be themselves, creating a more balanced and healthy dynamic in the relationship. Lastly, remember that control can be a trap when it's not moderated. Sometimes the best thing is to give space and let things unfold more naturally. This doesn't mean being passive, but flexible, trusting that everything will fall into place in a way that benefits everyone. With a little more openness and trust in others, your tendency to control can turn into a collaborative leadership that unites rather than divides. Being someone who likes to push boundaries can be a very powerful trait. Curiosity, the desire to explore new ideas and challenge conventions, can open doors to growth and innovation. However, when it comes to relationships, pushing boundaries needs to be done with care and consideration, because not everyone is ready to be challenged all the time. Think about it. If you're constantly testing someone's limits, whether with your ideas, behaviors, or expectations, it can make the other person feel uncomfortable or even invaded. Everyone has their own rhythm and emotional boundaries, and pushing them without realizing it can lead to resistance or distance. The key here is to observe and respect the nonverbal cues others give. Sometimes, when someone is uncomfortable or unprepared for an intense conversation or experience, the signs are subtle. Maybe a quieter tone, a closed gesture, or even a change in facial expression. Recognizing these signals and stepping back is an important step to ensure you're not crossing the other person's boundaries unintentionally. Additionally, pushing boundaries doesn't have to be uncomfortable. You can do it in a more gentle and collaborative way. Instead of throwing out an intense question or challenge right away, start with something lighter. "I was thinking about a different concept. What do you think?" This opens the space for the other person to share their ideas and feelings without feeling pressured. Lastly, remember that not every boundary needs to be challenged. There are times when respecting the other person's limits and giving space for them to feel secure is a more effective way to strengthen the relationship. Pushing boundaries can be enriching when done carefully, but it's crucial to pair it with empathy and respect for the other person's emotional space. By balancing your curiosity with sensitivity to others' boundaries, you can create a dynamic that's challenging in a positive way without creating discomfort or distance. This helps build stronger, healthier, and more trusting relationships. Self-awareness is one of the most powerful qualities someone can cultivate, especially when it comes to relationships. It means being able to notice how your actions, words, and behaviors affect the people around you. Self-awareness allows you to observe yourself honestly, and when necessary, make adjustments to improve your interactions and strengthen your connections. However, it's not enough to just be self-aware. You also need to know how to adjust when you realize something isn't working. For example, you might notice that you tend to be very direct in your conversations, which can push some people away, or that your emotional intensity can be a bit much for those around you. The key here is being willing to reflect on these aspects and modify what's necessary to create a more harmonious interaction. These adjustments don't need to be drastic or difficult. Small changes in your daily behavior can have a huge impact. Maybe you can start by being more patient when listening to others, giving them more space to share their thoughts without rushing or interrupting. Or, if you realize you're taking too much control of the situation, you can practice giving others more voice, allowing them to express themselves and make their choices. Also, self-awareness involves recognizing your own emotions. Sometimes, you may be reacting disproportionately due to something happening internally rather than externally. Being able to identify those moments and take a step back to calm down or reflect helps avoid unnecessary conflicts and creates a more balanced environment. When you can adjust your behavior and be flexible with others' needs, relationships become more fluid and genuine. The person next to you feels that you are conscious of the impact you have on them, which strengthens trust and connection. In summary, self-awareness is like an internal compass that guides your interactions, and when used consciously, it helps create an atmosphere of respect and harmony in relationships. Small adjustments, made with intention and care, have the power to transform how you connect with others, making your bonds deeper and healthier. So, did you like the tips? Now it's your turn. Tell us in the comments. Have you made any of these mistakes without realizing? Or maybe you have other tips to share. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up to help the channel grow and bring more content to you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now so you won't miss any videos and keep improving your relationships. Until the next video, and remember, healthy relationships start with you.